Our Plant Stories has been nominated as a finalist in the Independent Podcast Awards in a new category called Environment and Natural World. I'll let you know how we get on. Thanks to all those who are regular supporters of the podcast with their commitment to buying a monthly coffee. And to Anne, who also sent some caffeine my way this month, all of which goes towards paying for this podcast, the hosting platform and the editing programme. The link is in the show notes. And now, a plant story. Welcome to Our Plant Stories. Over the course of this second series, we have heard people's stories about and passions for a variety of plants, from the humble radish to the majestic monkey puzzle tree. We've also heard about the work of some charities, from long-standing ones like Perennial to newer ones like Horatio's Garden. I spent many years in the BBC working with charities, helping them to tell their stories, and I always hoped that garden charities would find their way into this podcast. They have. The small charitable trust who run Hill Close Gardens in Warwick was the most recent, and it was while sitting in those detached Victorian gardens that I met the founder of another rather special charity. For this Offshoot episode, I invite you to join us on the bench.
So I'm Liz Ware. I'm a garden writer. I'm the founder of a charity called Silent Space.
So Liz, where did the idea for Silent Space come from?
Well, I used to do a lot of writing about gardens, and I'm a garden historian, so it was mainly historic gardens that are open to the public. And I would also take photographs when I was working for quite a small magazine. So that meant getting to a garden really early morning to catch the light. And then I might have half an hour or so before interviewing the head gardener. So I would just wander around this beautiful space where I had no responsibility for anything, just soaking up the beauty. And it gave me such a wonderful, calm feeling inside that would last for the rest of the day. So that I was a really relaxed mum, actually, when I got home in the evening for my sons. And it struck me that it was such a huge privilege to have time in a garden to just be quiet and soak up the sounds and really notice what was growing there, the hard work the gardeners have put in, nature. Because, of course, when we're still and silent, we cause a lot less disturbance. So there's a lot of bird song. So then I decided I'd try and find a way to make it work. So over the years, I sort of hatched a bit of a plan, and maybe I could set up something called Silent Space, because I had a lot of contacts in gardens, and it would be really simple. It wouldn't really cost anything. If we used an area that was already being used by visitors, then there wouldn't be any extra work for the garden team or any extra maintenance. So I had a plan, but of course, you know how it is. You come up with an idea and then life's busy and you do nothing about it. And it was 2015, my mum had a dementia diagnosis, and all of a sudden writing to deadline got quite tricky because I never knew in advance when my parents would need my help, and they lived 2 hours away. So I thought, what can I do? I love the gardening world I work in. I don't want to lose all those contacts. What can I do? That means I'm working to my own deadlines. So I thought, I know that idea I had for Silent Space, why don't I give that a go? So I started to talk to head gardeners, and I didn't come across one who said, oh, that's a silly idea. Not one. So off we went, and we thought about what we were going to do, and I wasn't sure what to do about signage. But one head gardener said to me, well, we've all got A-boards and blackboards on site. That wouldn't cost us anything. Why don't we just all chalk up a sign and put it at the entrance to the area we've decided to use as our Silent Space? So 2016, we ran a pilot, and it ran for 4 weekends in June. It actually started on my birthday. I didn't tell anyone that, but it felt like a good sign. And to start with, we asked people on garden reception to talk to people as they went into the garden and tell them all about it. And they had a really interesting response almost everyone they spoke to said, "Oh, what a lovely idea," with a kind of a sinking down of their shoulders, a sigh of relief. What a lovely idea. And then we quite often go on talking about how the world was too busy and how we need places where we can just stop. So we knew we were on to a good thing, but of course that didn't tell us what happened when people were in the space, because the last thing we wanted to do was to chase around after people with feedback forms, because that would destroy the whole experience. So we tied notebooks to benches, and I got the idea from an organisation in the States called Nature Sacred, and they tie notebooks, and the whole point of the project is to tie notebooks on benches in public gardens and just let people share their thoughts. But we thought we could try that for the pilot. So the notebooks went on the benches, and at the end of the pilot I went back to collect them, and I was a bit nervous. I thought, well, we've already put quite a bit of time into this. What if people say, "Oh, it's a stupid idea. Why would we want to go and sit in a garden and be quiet?" But it was extraordinary. It was so heartwarming. People drew pictures, they wrote poems, and what was really interesting, the words they used most often were thank you. And it was thank you for all sorts of things. What was fascinating about that is that social scientists use gratitude. They ask people to express gratitude in order to measure their well-being. Well, we hadn't asked people to do anything. All we'd done was put up a little blackboard in front of a part of the garden that people were already visiting and said, while you're in this space, just switch off from distractions, which probably means phones, and take some quiet time to reflect. And out poured all this gratitude. One of the most interesting thank yous was, "Thank you for permission to be silent." And quite a few other visitors have said the same.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Permission to be silent.
Yeah. Because the world around us encourages us, well, society encourages us to keep on communicating.
Even in a garden where you might think we might switch off, we don't automatically switch off.
We don't automatically do it, no, because I think we're so used to just keeping on going.
Have you watched people in gardens? And
Yes.
if you have, what have you observed?
Well, one of the reasons for setting it up was having observed people in gardens looking far more distracted. Gardens were getting busier, and of course they have to attract more people. In order to keep going, they need to financially. But that means that people are always quite often doing. And then, of course, you add in the distractions of phones, and it's as if there's no escape for people.
So we're taking photographs, we're sending pictures,
Yeah.
we're Googling what that plant is, we're...
Or selfies.
Selfies.
Yeah. And none of that's bad. But wouldn't it be great to also have an opportunity to just switch off?
How did you go about choosing the gardens?
Well, initially it's ones where I had contacts because they knew me and trusted me and were prepared to give it a go. And then I looked for gardens with Quaker origins. So there are a couple in Cornwall, one up at Peckover, I think that's still called Cambridgeshire. And then it got a little bit more difficult because I was sometimes cold calling. We weren't at the stage then that where enough people knew about us for gardens to suggest us to other gardens or to recommend us. That did get difficult. If I could get through to a head gardener, but it can be a little bit like trying to talk to a doctor. There's always someone trying to stop you. But I sometimes, just sheer fluke, I would get through to the right person. Someone would say, just the very person I needed to speak to, said to me, would pick up the phone and say, well, I don't usually answer the phone, but here I am. And now, of course, it's I don't even look for gardens to join us. They come to us, which I guess is a good place to be, really.
Do you have any favourite
Oh, yes.
silent spaces?
Yes. Waterperry in Oxfordshire is one of my favourites. They joined us for the pilot, have been with us ever since. And in fact, I was doing an interview with the head gardener, Pat Havers, for an article in a garden magazine. And I don't know what made me suddenly say, I've got this idea, Pat. When we finished the interview, can I just talk to you about it? And she instantly said, yeah, that would be perfect here. And I think this would be the perfect place for it. And they've been with us ever since. And I've been there sometimes when it's been a particularly lovely day. And there are a lot of benches in this fabulous formal garden they use as their space. And every bench can be full of just people sitting quietly. And to be with other people in a beautiful place, all just soaking up the beauty, is very, very bonding, I think, somehow.
Do you have to have certain things in the space? Is seating always important?
Seating's important. Yeah, we have we've learnt over the years what really works. So there are a few things we say. Yes, ideally, options for people, places for people to sit, and more than one bench, ideally. Otherwise, it limits the number of people who feel they can be in there. Space to walk around too, because some people just like to wander silently. Seating in shade and in sun depends. So it gives people an option. Biodiverse.
What do you mean by biodiverse?
Plenty of planting, so not just a plain green space. Plenty of mixed, interesting planting that attracts wildlife. Because as soon as we sit quietly, the wildlife appears. It might just already be there, but I don't know if you find the same thing. If you stand in front of a border, you think maybe there aren't many bees here, aren't many pollinators, and then if you just stand for a bit longer, you start to spot them.
You get your eye in, don't you?
You do get your eye in, yeah. So plenty of distraction for people, really, so that they don't spiral down into overthinking, which can be a problem sometimes if you're quiet. But if you're in a garden and things are moving in the breeze, birds popping around the place, people always mention that in the feedback, in the notebooks, they always mention the bird song or the pollinators.
And do you still have notebooks?
We do use them. We've been doing feedback collections. I think we've done 4 or 5 this year, could be 6 in different gardens, and we spend the morning observing what's going on in the space, and then we chat to people afterwards. But all day we leave notebooks on the benches and collect them up at the end of the day, and nothing's changed really. We still get this amazing gratitude for the garden and the beauty and for nature.
How long do people spend in the silent space?
Not as long as they think they do. We see this from observing. So you'll do some observation in the morning, and then quite often the people are still in the garden. You'll talk to them as they're leaving. Oh, yes, I spent about 25 minutes in there. And you think, well, I recorded it and it was 10. But I think we're just not used to being quiet for long. It doesn't matter, really. But in some places and some people who are very comfortable with we're all learning, aren't we? Some people who are very comfortable with being quiet, yes, might stay half an hour.
What about the age profile?
Mixed. Some people have said to us that, of course, it's no good for us, we've got children, but some small children have been extraordinary. We were at a garden in Cornwall doing feedback collection, and there was a family. I guess the children were maybe, 2 gardens I can think of actually. One garden, children were maybe about 8 and 10, I would say. And when we collected them, they were in there for ages. And when we collected the notebooks at the end of the day, both children had a page in the notebook, and they'd drawn and written little things. One had said, I think it was the girl, had said, this is such a calm place, I love it. And the other one had written, it makes me think of beautiful landscapes. But of course, they were with their mother, and their mother had said to them, we'd heard her say this, let's go and see what we do in a silent space. So it's all about how we introduce it to children, and don't expect them to be quiet for too long. You just do it for a little time. Another family, the daughter said to us, every time we come to this garden, we go to the silent space first, because we notice more in the rest of the garden afterwards. And I've had several adults have said exactly the same thing. It looks far more magical after we spent time in the silent space. But it was interesting that a girl of 11 or 12 had picked up on that as well.
So this is now a charity?
Yes, it became a charity in 2020.
And what does that mean for it?
Well, I guess it's recognisable now. People are more likely to support us, to want to be part of us. But for me, it's really helpful to have a team supporting me. Because when I started out, I did sometimes think, well, maybe I'm just completely bonkers to be. But maybe that's the way all interesting things start.
It's an extraordinary story because it's over a number of years as well. So this little idea has just germinated and then has just slowly been growing as the best things do. Has it changed your ability to be silent?
I've always found that quite easy in a garden, or anywhere green, woodland in particular, actually ancient woodland. I just like noticing and soaking things up, but I'm sure it must have made me more aware in some way, or deepened it for me possibly.
What are your aspirations for the charity? Do you have aspirations or hopes for it going forward?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if it was just normal? If all gardens everywhere kept a space where people could be silent. It needn't be part of the charity, but wouldn't that be wonderful if this has started a recognition that this is something that's not just good for us as individuals, but possibly good for the environment too, because once we start to notice things and pay attention, there's certainly research at Derby University has showed this, we tend to care for it more. We build more of a relationship, more of a connection with it. Just imagine if every park had somewhere where people could be silent, and it was normal and natural to do that, to think to yourself. When we do it, sort of, in everyday life anyway, we say, well, I've just got to go and walk around the block to clear my head. So we know it, but to actually sit and notice what's around us, we don't do as much as would be good for us, I think.
It is the fact that you're giving permission, isn't it?
Yeah, seems to be.
And saying also that in this space, everybody else has made the same choice.
Yes, yeah.
And that's different to possibly just sitting on a bench when, it's a bit like being in the quiet coach of the train, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
You've chosen to be in that coach because you don't want to have phone calls interrupting or people being on their phone. You've made a conscious decision.
Yeah. That's the way we describe it to people. Actually, when gardens want to join us, we say it's a little bit like the garden version of a quiet carriage on the train, because the people are silent, but the sounds of the garden and the outside world go on around us.
We've spent part of today in Hill Close Gardens in Warwick, which I think are very special. Is this somewhere you can imagine a silent space?
Yes, I could. Yeah. It sounds as if it's loved by the local community and well used by the local community. I'm sure if they were interested, we'd be very happy for them to join us.
And you would just find somewhere in the garden. They would find somewhere.
They would find somewhere, yes, and we could help. We could give them suggestions.
My thanks to Liz Ware. I am sure that any of the charities you have heard on Our Plant Stories will always appreciate your support. Our Plant Stories is an independent podcast presented and produced by me, Sally Flatman. Thank you for listening. If you want to show your support for this podcast via Buy Me a Coffee, then the link is in the show notes or on the website ourplantstories.com. I promise you, your virtual coffee will go towards the podcast, not plants.